Good evening, everyone. I call to the order of the regular City Council meeting for October 11, 2022 at 7:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Armstrong,
Here.
Councilmember Perkins,
Here.
Councilmember Zafar,
Here.
Vice Mayor Veros,
Here.
and Mayor Hudson is absent this evening.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with that, item 3.1. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
There are none this evening.
Thank you. Item 3.2. If you wish to speak under public comment or regarding an agenda item, please fill out a speaker card located in the back of the room and submit it to the city clerk. If you are participating remotely, click the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 on your telephone to request to speak when public comment is being taken on the agenda item. Item 3.3, board, committee, and commission meetings. A complete list of upcoming meetings may be found on city's website at www.sanramon.ca.gov. Subscription service is available at the link for automatic meeting notification. Contact the city clerk with questions 925-973-2539. Item 4, public comment. Public comment is now open. At this time, the public is permitted to address the city council on items that are on the consent calendar, including requests to pull an item from the consent calendar items that through 5.1 to 5.3. And the reason why you wish to pull the item or items. Please note that the decision to remove the item from the consent calendar is strictly at the discretion of the city council. Request for the future agenda items. Special presentation items under section 6 of tonight's agenda, items that are not on agenda and are within the city council jurisdiction. So do we have any cards?
Yes, we do have one. We received 2 speaker cards, one that would like to speak on this item and one that does not like to speak. And then we have 4 written comments and we do have hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, so do we have someone to talk here today or?
The first comment card is from David Hughes.
David Hughes, please.
Thank you. Excuse my appearance. I just had back surgery and I'm supposed to be home in a hospital bed right now. But this is very important. This is about the marketplace development. We moved to the Newcastle development because of the thriving retail center at Marketplace. And of course, the grocery store. It has, with Nob Hill gone, it has created a bit of a food desert for about 15,000 homes that relied on Nob Hill for their groceries. And only to put in more homes that don't have a grocery store within 1.5 miles. So I don't think it's a good idea. I think the interest of the public would be better served by having another grocery outlet there. Not grocery outlet, but another grocery market there. Like I said, it was one of the main reasons that we moved there was the proximity to the store. A lot of people don't like driving their cars these days, so it's walking distance and saves a lot of money on fuel if there was a grocery store still there. So I just think it's a really, really bad idea, and I hate seeing all the people that have been employees of Nob Hill lose their position because of this proposed development. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other caller?
We do have a speaker card that does not want to speak, but they are against the marketplace development from Vigil Uni. And then we do have 1 hand raised on Zoom from call-in user 1.
Yeah, call in user 1, please go ahead.
Hi, Chair. I have been raising my hand since agenda item number 3, but you didn't call me for item number 3. And you went straight to the public comment. So I really, if I were physically there, I would have given you 2 cards, one
They're
for 3
unmuted,
and
but
one
it
for
doesn't look
4.
like we're getting audio.
Call in
Hi,
user,
can you
we
hear
cannot
me?
hear you.
Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
Okay, we are working on it to fix.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
It doesn't look like we're getting audio right now.
Oh, okay.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Technical issues.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
No, Joan is checking for the audio.
Oh.
So,
Hello,
Just
can you
we're
hear
trying
me?
to troubleshoot it.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
It looks
Hello,
like it's
can
not
you hear
working
me?
right now. Did you want to take public comment
Oh,
maybe after?
once we, yeah,
We
so
have-
we,
We do have 3 hands raised on Zoom right now.
3 hands?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So at this point, we are still troubleshooting the issue with the audio. I'm going to open public comment once again once we fix the problem. Meanwhile, we'll continue with the meeting. So are there any email or written comments?
I do have 4 written comments for this item from Diana Corpy, Susie Ferris Intercom, Kara Schneck, and Tom Perillo.
Sounds good.
We got those.
Okay. We all got, right, those emails? Perfect. Thank you. So with that, I'm closing the public comment. As I mentioned, I'm going to open once again as soon as we fix the audio.
Through the chair of, that's over here. If you are intending to entertain public comment outside of the agenda toward the end of the meeting, but you want to do it in between some of these others, we'll just need a vote of the council to amend the agenda for this evening.
Okay, so my idea is like, we'll wait until we get to the point where we have to get the items, right? So then we don't get, because we have even consent calendar, right? Okay. So we need to go with the
So,
voting
yeah,
at this
or
point.
if you give us a couple minutes, maybe I can try to go troubleshoot it as well.
Okay, I'll give a couple more minutes. So let's wait on that one. I think that's that.
Call a recess for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Call a 5-minute recess.
Okay, we'll take 5-minute recess so that we can fix this audio issue and then we'll come back. Thank you.
Oh, you can hear. Get the caller.
Going to open the public comment now once again. Public comment is open.
We do have one more speaker card from Tara Gibson.
Okay, please. No worries.
So there's just a couple of other things too. I just moved here about a year ago, but I've been a resident of San Ramon for 16 years. I lived in the Twin Creeks area, but I'm kind of newer to the marketplace area. But something I've noticed is a lot of people, of course, move to the Reflections area for the walking distance because it's so nice to walk to marketplace. It's so nice to be there. For people that don't have cars, because sometimes people can't afford a car or whatnot, it's very convenient for the walking distance. Also, there has been word that there's a neglectance of property owner maintenance, which kind of caused a lot of businesses to go out in the marketplace. And it's really sad. I was a frequent customer of Hop Yard because I loved it. It was great food, great service, great people, bunch of people that had a great job, and it's gone. And same with Nob Hill. Another idea is that it probably would be, and I'm not a professional at it, but less expensive for the developer to build affordable housing, because I think this might be what they're doing, is because every city has a certain percentage of affordable housing now that they have to do because of the new standards or whatnot. But it might be less expensive for the developer to build affordable housing on open space that's already available. Perhaps like the area next to the city center. I've been here for 16 years. That's been vacant. Now, I don't know if that's zoned only for commercial. But if it's not, that's a great area to build instead of demolish, the marketplace that's already been there for a long time. So be less expensive, maybe, but just my 2 cents.
Thank you. So any other cards?
That was the last speaker card for this item. And then we do have a hand raised on Zoom from Susie Ferris Indercom.
Okay, let's bring them on.
Yes, council members, there is something that you can take action on, and that is to support CampAd's legal appeal to have set another hearing date prior to the automatic approval of this application by TRC. The reason we're demanding that is because TRC has not met the general plan guidelines related to master plans. And yet they're asking for the subdivision of a single large parcel into 3 very small parcels and a remainder parcel. And that should not be allowed. The way they're asking to parcelize it with a driveway, a separate parcel for the 40 condos, which really aren't condos, they're single family homes, and 4 ADUs. And then a separate parcel for Starbucks without any new construction on that parcel. Makes perfect sense if you're going to sell off those parcels. Without a master plan, the city of San Ramon, and you've already heard 2 residents in person tell you how dependent the local community is on that shopping center. Without a master plan, one only knows what's going to happen next if you let them parcelize this. There absolutely must be a master plan, and we're asking for the city council, the city attorney, and the planning commission to comply with our legal actions. Thank you for your time.
Any other raised hands? Okay.
The next comment is from Dan Bridges.
There. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you for a minute to speak to you about my concerns on this proposed development. I want to start by, I'm a resident here for the last 20 plus years and I've shopped at that marketplace area consistently over that period of time and enjoyed it greatly. It's added to the quality of the life for myself and my family here in San Ramon. So I have a couple of things I want to mention with regard to information in the media here to back up my contention that this is the wrong direction to go with that particular plot of land. The real estate section of the Wall Street Journal recently on the 4th of October published an article where they spoke about the revival that's being seen in the retail sector at the present time. In fact, across the country, the retail real estate sector is enjoying its biggest revival in years. Vacancies are down, rents are up, and more stores are opening than closing. Brick and mortar store owners are emerging from this pandemic, and I quote, with surprising strength and posting some of their best numbers in years and plotting expansions as more Americans venture out to buy things again. The US retail vacancy fell to 6.1% in the second quarter, and that's the lowest level in at least 15 years, according to Cushman and Wakefield. So and after being forced to buy more things online at the start of the pandemic, many people have decided they like shopping in stores for items ranging from clothing to groceries, and a reassuring sign for the staying power, again, I say the staying power of bricks and mortar retail. Based on what I've heard at several of the previous city council meetings, the public listening are being given the wrong information, in my opinion, that the future of retail is the Amazon online model. And it's going to be all downhill from now on for retail. If we have limited, and that is obviously patently incorrect in assuming that that's the way the future is going to be. If we have limited space to expand retail further in the city, why would we let TRC tear down the area of the marketplace to drop in 40 homes and eliminate forever a viable retail commercial space that serves the purpose of enhancing the quality of life for local residents? And don't tell me it's because of the RHNA numbers. There are other options to deal with those demands from the state than deprive the citizens of a viable space for retail in a grocery store. And finally, from the San Francisco Chronicle on the 10th of April of this year, an article by Amy Koval did a comprehensive analysis of the quality of life in the top 20.
Wrap up your comment, please.
Okay, so I would just say that I would ask that the city consider denying this project in the form that it's been proposed to maintain the quality of life that I've enjoyed here for the years I've lived here. Thank you very much.
Any other callers?
The next hand raised is calling user 1.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you.
Can you hear me? Yes, you can, or no, you cannot. Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I just want to call out foul play by the city attorney's opinion for the Brown Act. Used to be that the public is able to pull out consent agenda per a separate item, and now he is forcing the public to forego their civil rights by pulling consent items during public comment, which is reserved for non-agenda items. So you guys are totally doing this wrong. Also, respectfully, Vice Mayor, I had raised my hand during item number 3, which is your announcement on the agenda, and you failed to call me. So this comment is really for item number 3. And I now end that item 3, and I'm going to proceed to my right to speak for a non-agenda item public comment under 4. I'm going to proceed now. So I feel that the speakers tonight are all speaking on the marketplace for a reason, because you don't seem to want to encourage more public input on this item, or you would have agenda'd it tonight, despite that this item was carefully deliberated during the Planning Commission's meeting last time. So I am noticing that the city has been repeatedly ignoring public comments and their protest on you encroaching on the quality of life. So, like, for example, with Vice Mayor, you know, ever since you were elected, I'm seeing that my district here in Doherty Valley is getting more and more rundown. People feel free to litter anytime, and, you know, the traffic rules are constantly violated. They don't come to a complete stop, but then we cannot send our police because, you know, I mean, defund the police, you know. So I really wish that you would please do your job. You know, district election is not just for minorities to sit on there, you know, to help your friends and family members. It's for you to upkeep with our quality of life. And I'm going to hold you to it to do your job. You're not up for election, but you will be. And I will hold you in comparison to my quality of life before and after. Thank you.
Okay, any other callers?
Michelle Pelkey.
Michelle Bulky.
It looks like she's still muted.
Michelle, looks like you are still muted.
We can come back to her. We have two other speakers.
Okay, let's go. Proceed with next.
Casey Souza.
Hi, I just want to go on record that it just seems to not make any sense at all to take away a primary full-service grocery store in an area with so many residents and continue to build housing. There are plans to keep adding housing over in Bishop Ranch and over near the city center. And you're taking away, you know, a long-established full-service grocery store and pushing people to drive even further, which our infrastructure is just not set up to handle it. And you guys just really, really, really need to think hard about it. I understand that there are requirements by the state for affordable housing, which I'm a huge, huge proponent of, but why don't you do some of these other multi-use, excuse me, plans where you're putting shopping on a main level and building up with housing on top?
Next speaker.
Steve.
Me? I'm sorry. There we go. My name is Steve Cohen. I would like to comment first on the gentleman that spoke. I think he was 2 speakers ago. He had excellent facts. I think that facts matter. I was at the city council meeting on a Zoom last week, and the assistant city attorney not only didn't have answers, but she was so arrogant in the way that she said that there are laws and there are opinions, and it depends on how you look at the laws. This is pertaining to the marketplace. The only other comment I would like to make is that building 40 small single family homes and 4 ADUs is going to accommodate how many people versus the thousands of people that were able to use Nob Hill, that used to frequent Hop Yard. The restaurants did very well. Everything was doing very well in the marketplace, except that the owner, TRC, failed to maintain the property. I can remember when it rained, walking into Nob Hill and seeing buckets on the floor because the roof was leaking. I mean, that was the quality that TRC, there was no question, they wanted Nob Hill out. They wanted to redevelop that center, get their money out and get out of town. I'm sorry. I'm calling it as I see it. Thank you.
Any other callers?
Michelle Pelkey.
Oh.
Can you hear me? Oh, fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you for allowing me to get that sorted out. Thank you also for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Michelle, and I was actually born and raised in San Ramon, and I live in the house that I grew up in, which is an honor and a blessing this day and age. My parents built the house in 1967, and I've seen San Ramon grow tremendously over the years, to say the least. Marketplace was one of the most beautiful, and still is, developments that San Ramon has, period. And although TRC neglected to keep it up, I would like to basically say they were slumlords, and I felt for the tenants for decades. But I don't see that this can't be turned around. And I echo what Steve said. The thousands of people that enjoy Marketplace compared to the few that would be moving into the housing, it just doesn't add up. Today I was there doing my shopping like I usually do at Trader Joe's. I used to also go to Nob Hill, but since that's not there, I can't do that anymore. But I wish I could have taken all of you council members with me to the parking lot. It was nearly full. And I would really like to ask for you, San Ramon council members, to go down there, maybe do a field trip, sit at the Cold Stone for a few hours, have an ice cream, and watch how many cars are in and out of that development. Even with half of the businesses shut down. And my point is, it is still thriving because we residents love the marketplace and we don't want it to go. We would love to have another supplemental grocery store in there. And we would love to see other businesses, brick and mortar, go back in there. It is a special place. It's unique. And I think San Ramon Council, you should be proud of Marketplace. And let's bring it back. I really, it's unique. It's amazing.
Excuse me, please wrap up your thoughts. Your 3 minutes is over.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all I want to say. If I can encourage you to go down there, you may not all live near it. Go down. The one thing I want to say is several members said last meeting, I was on Zoom, they don't really frequent it. How can anyone on a planning commission not frequent
Well, you got 10
the
seconds.
study?
Yeah, you
The
got 10
study
seconds.
that they're, okay, well, then don't interrupt me. The study that they are supposed to be looking at. Go to the place. Look at it for yourself. That's all.
That was the last hand raised.
You can do only one public comment. Yeah. But then at the end section, yeah. Sorry for that. Okay, with that, I'm closing.
Before we move on, we do have one more hand raised.
Oh, we have one more hand raised. Okay, let's go with it.
Diana Corpy.
Hi, thank you, Vice Chair and council members. Just a little background. I've been a resident and homeowner of San Ramon for 33 years and a real estate broker selling to families in our community for 33 years. Marketplace has always been a thriving, beautiful place to not only shop, but to mingle with your children and colleagues. I'd like to point out from our general plan, item 3.1, pertaining to the growth strategy of the city. The city has an obligation to provide quality of public services, facilities, and a lifestyle that are enjoyed by those who live here. I want you to look at what is in our growth strategy plan. It is so pertinent to what TRC is trying to do, is trying to subdivide the marketplace. They are parcelizing or trying to parcelize out the marketplace to subdivide it. And it's apparent to all of us that look at those. And we are not going to have any conformity in terms of what is going to be happening there. I appeal to you from not only myself as a resident, but for my clients and my fellow constituents. We need to protect retail, and you, as our leaders of the city, you have a duty to preserve our services and our facilities to provide us a healthy and happy, thriving community. I need you to please look at their application and look at what's best for our city as a whole as we move forward with our growth pattern that's been dictated by the state of California. So please look at the fact that we need to have shopping and we need to have places for people to go get their hair done, nail salons, people to go and visit, like the Hop Yard Ale House, the Round Table Pizza. I thank you very much for your time. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other comments?
That was the last hand raised.
Last one. Cool. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm closing the public comments. Item 5, consent calendar. There are consent calendar items 5.1 through 5.3. Consent calendar items are considered routine and are acted upon by the city council with a single action. Members of the audience wishing to provide public input may request by email to the city clerk or under item 4 public comment that the city council remove the item from the consent calendar. Members of the public may request that items be removed from the consent calendar. However, the decision to remove the item is solely at the discretion of the city council. With respect to the approval of resolution and ordinances, the reading of the title thereto shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of complete resolution or ordinance, and unless there is a request by council member that the resolution, I see already moved. So let me finish my final sentence. Council members, that the resolution or ordinance be read in full. Further reading of the resolution or ordinance shall be deemed waived by unanimous consent of the council. So I see it is already moved. Let's go for voting. Okay, it's moved by Council Member Jaffer and second by Perkins, and 4-0 yes, and no vote 1.
No. Not a vote.
Not a vote. No
Yes,
vote.
It's
Okay.
not a no.
Not a vote is 1. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so with that, let's go to item 6, special presentations. Okay, for sure, this is a special presentation. 6.1, legislative update by California State Assembly Member Rebecca Bauer-Kehan.
Hello, council members. Ms. Mayor, thanks for having me tonight. It's good to be with all of you. For those listening online or here, if you don't know me, I'm your State Assembly member, Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, and I have the privilege of representing San Ramon in the State Assembly. I'm here tonight to give a quick, hopefully legislative update on what's been happening in Sacramento as it relates to the community. But before I begin, since I'm here, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to the city manager, Joe Gordon, and congratulate him on his upcoming retirement in January after 16 years of service to the city. And thank you for your dedication to the community and your hard work. As we all know, as elected officials, it is the incredible staff that make all the beautiful things happen in our communities. So thank you, Joe, for your service. I also want to thank the city of San Ramon for your incredible collaboration with me. Just earlier tonight, I had the privilege of hosting a town hall in your beautiful community center, but we've also had the opportunity to partner on a food drive here in San Ramon and COVID testing, passing out COVID tests. You are right in the center of my district, so I'm grateful for the partnership that enables the vast majority of my constituents to get to the events. And I look forward to continuing to host events here in San Ramon with each and every one of you. We have been busy this past year in Sacramento. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish for Californians, especially on the issues that really matter most to our constituents, like mental health, environmental protection, reproductive rights, ensuring that we're doing everything we can to support our constituents through the inflation to the greatest extent possible. I had 17 bills make it to the governor's desk this year. 15 were signed into law. I will not talk about everything because it's all on my website for anyone who wants to check it out. But one really important piece of legislation that we had signed by the governor that was supported by this council was AB 988, which in partnership with our cities, including San Ramon, will allow us to fund and provide mobile crisis response teams to those in our communities who are suffering with mental health crisis, rather than having law enforcement respond to those who need a healthcare response. And I know this is something that you all have been working on in partnership with your fire department here in San Ramon. And I really thank you for leading on this effort to provide those who need mental health care with the response they deserve. But this funding and the effort from the state will just bolster that and provide around the clock support to all of our constituents. And it's something that I'm really excited about because we know it'll save lives, especially as we've seen the rise in suicide over the past few years. We've worked really hard this year to ensure that California continues to provide healthcare to every Californian. That meant extending Medi-Cal to every Californian. We are now 100% covered, which is an incredible achievement here in California. And it will save the state dollars because we do provide healthcare in our emergency rooms, and it's actually more expensive than when we provide care for those before by providing ongoing care. And it will also improve outcomes. We also did incredible work on ensuring that women have continued access to comprehensive health care, including abortion here in California, despite what is a wave of laws across the country attempting to take away those rights. Through that work, I've had the privilege of working with the White House, which has been an incredible partner in ensuring that states that do want to stand up for women's rights and equity are doing so in concert and ensuring that women are protected to the fullest extent of the law. As many of you know, I'm a former environmental attorney, and the environment and climate change is top of mind for me, as I know it is for many of our constituents who think every day about the wildfires and drought that we're facing as a result of climate change. So I had the privilege of becoming the chair of the Water, Parks, and Wildlife Committee. And there is a comma between water and parks. When I told my husband, he thought it was water parks, but it's not. Through that work, I've been able to focus on investment and drought management, which is really important, ensuring that California will continue to have access to water, which I know is something the city works on every day. Because water is life and Californians need it, and we have it. We just need to make sure we're storing it and providing it and keeping it clean for Californians. We also passed a law in concert with Contra Costa County that will stop the illegal dumping that we're seeing happen in our community. People are dumping more and more things on our streets that should not go there, and we wanted to make sure we had the enforcement tools for our district attorney to go after those individuals and enforce the laws. We also worked on legislation to combat hate crimes. As many of you know, we've seen a rise in hate crimes as it relates to the API community, all communities of color, anti-Semitism, et cetera. This bill allowed us to ensure that terror symbols were penalized equally, but also across more locations. So if you put a terror symbol now in a school or in a cemetery, it will be considered a crime under our terror symbols laws. Catalytic converter theft. I know all of you have heard about catalytic converter theft. It is something that we are really seeing on the rise. One of my staff had her catalytic converter stolen just recently. This year, we signed 2 bills into law that will combat the market for those stolen parts, creating tracking requirements of transactions involving catalytic converters and making it illegal for recyclers to buy them from anyone but licensed individuals. So we're trying to end the market and hopefully do more to fight the theft of catalytic converters, which we know is happening in every community across the state. Wildfire continues to be top of mind. We were able to move legislation to ensure that where there is a utility caused wildfire, it is not the ratepayers paying for that criminal liability, but instead the investors of the investor-owned utilities. They were the ones with the criminal acts. They should be paying, not each of you. So again, focused on our utility rates and doing everything we can to keep those rates as low as possible, which I know are too high for most Californians right now. So we'll continue to look at that and make sure the PUC is doing everything they can to keep rates where they need to be for Californians to afford energy, which is also necessary for life and safety. We are investing in wildfire management, both through giving CAL FIRE the tools they need to fight fires, but also forest management. Also important to know that Californians making under $250,000 a year right now are poised to receive either $350 per taxpayer or up to $1,050 per family. That is coming as a inflation reduction measure. We know people are hurting with the price at the pump and the price at the grocery store. It's not just gas, it's also milk and the goods we buy every day. So we really wanted to put checks into the pockets of Californians who need it most. Lastly, I just wanted to point out that my office is here to support any of our shared constituents who need our services with state agencies like the EDD, the employment for those needing unemployment, DMV, Franchise Tax Board. We also are here hosting community events. We're having an open house on October 20th at 4:30 right here in Bishop Ranch for anyone who wants to join us. Make sure to follow us on social media and you'll know everything that's going on. But I'm so happy to serve you. And if the council has any questions, happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you for presentation. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much for coming tonight. I really do appreciate it. I remember very vividly when Mark DeSaulnier, who was on the Board of Supervisors and then with the State Assembly and State Senate, and then Congressman would come and present. And I thought that was wonderful. And you have to defend your position sometimes, and sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't, but I really do appreciate you coming tonight. I would like to ask you to continue to support community choice aggregation power programs. MCE is here and throughout almost all of Contra Costa County. You live in Lafayette, if I recall.
I live in Orinda, the only city that doesn't have community choice aggregation, council member.
Yeah, you need to poke at them a little bit, but
Oh, I do.
I'm on the board MCE and we provide power at prices below
Yeah.
PG&E.
Yep.
And we're also 90% clean.
Mhm.
And we're, was it 65 or 70% renewable? And I always think it's kind of odd that hydro is not considered renewable. But that's a state law thing. But please do, when those community choice aggregation, there's some enemies out there that want to shackle them. And that's generally coming from the big power companies that do that. I want to thank you for supporting the catalytic converter work. You heard tonight, we had 7 speakers and that spoke, and this is a result of SB 330 and the impact it has on a community when we have our hands are tied. And the community is very vocal on that particular project. I have received over the past year and a half, over 1,000 I know you received thousands of emails too, but at a city council level, to receive 1,000 emails on one topic, and 100% of them were on one side. I did not receive any support for the housing from anybody. And that's unique. I've been on council for quite a while, and I've never had that one-sided an activity. We had another project in town that frankly is completely ill-advised, but they flew under the SB 330 radar. And I don't think it really helps the community. This will be a small housing development in a completely, it's a what we call a community service, almost industrial area. So we're gonna put a little housing complex of a few dozen units, and they're more than a half a mile from the nearest park, the nearest grocery store. It's the auto body shops that are next door, and the carpet store and the auto parts store and all those. And they fly under the SB 330 radar. It didn't help. And it's the numbers aren't big enough to help our numbers. I do want to ask you two questions. One about support for the Sites Dam. I'm sure you're familiar with that. It seems like we passed the bond measure a long time ago to support water projects, and I'm not hearing or seeing anything on the Sites Dam. Do you have any insight on sites?
Yes. Okay. Did you? Okay.
The other question is,
yes.
where in Bishop Ranch are you? I know it used to be on BR6, but
I know
BR6,
it's gone.
yeah, it's gone. So where are you now?
Now I'm in 2130, I think it is. I don't know that we have a number anymore. I'm in one of the new buildings over right across from San Ramon Valley Hospital, literally across. So right where,
Oh, it's BR15.
it's 15. Okay. I didn't know we had a number. I just knew our address.
It's on Alcosta.
Yes, that's
Okay,
exactly right.
yeah, it's BR15.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me start with community choice aggregation. I couldn't agree more. And one thing you didn't mention is also the investments that you all make in the communities,
Yes,
which is really, really important of our community choice aggregators. So not only are you providing clean energy at a lower cost, which is remarkable, you're investing some of that money back into our communities. My city doesn't have any electric car charging because we don't have those investments in my city. So, huge shout out to the cities that have done that work, that are doing it. And yes, I tell Orinda.
I'm sure you know Amy Worth.
I do. And we haven't even been able to agendize it in Orinda, which is insane.
Yes.
We're working on it. As a constituent, I'm working on it. So secondly, you mentioned the housing. And I have to say that, as you mentioned, I was moved out of my Bishop Ranch office because it is being turned into housing, which was fine. I'm in a beautiful new office. But San Ramon is an example of a community that is planning housing down here that makes a lot of sense and is building a lot of units, right? We do have a housing crisis. We all, I speak to constituents every day, as I'm sure you do, that have kids that want to move back here. They want access to that grandparent babysitting, that they can't afford to do it, right? And so we do need to make sure we have housing at every income level because we want our community to be full of new life and the people who want to buy homes that didn't have the opportunity to do it when we did it, when it was much more affordable. And so, I've not supported a lot of the housing measures, including the one you mentioned, because I do believe that for my cities like San Ramon, and others that are doing what we need to do to build housing in the way that makes sense, we want our cities to be making those decisions. You talked about not putting it in the right place for city services. We also have developers that would want to put it on the wildland urban interface, which isn't where we want it for wildfire reasons, right? So there are a lot of reasons why where it's best to place it. And there's even safety concerns that I think go into that. So I hear you. As for the Sites Dam, they did do an oversight hearing prior to my joining the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee about the proposition money that you referenced. As I said, I was not on the committee at the time, but I did look at the materials and study it. And part of what we're seeing here in our community is, we are about to do reservoir work in the Tri-Valley, and the local water agencies have come together to create a joint agency in order to do that, because you have to put local money in. And that's really been the barrier for many of these projects, is that there has to be local investment and the local dollars aren't there. And so how do we as a state make sure we're lifting up those local entities that need dollars so we can then utilize that state money? Although I will say that a lot lot of what we're looking at moving forward is underground storage, which is really, really efficient. And so it may not be seen as much by every Californian, but it also means less evaporation, right? So, so dams are important, but so is underground storage. So again, if you don't see it, it doesn't mean we're not building it. It just means maybe we're being more efficient in where we build it and how we do it. And I know that Zone 7, I believe Zone 7 is part of the water bank in the Central Valley where they pump water down in good years and then they can call it back in bad years. And we need more of that because that's our future is dry years and wet years. So thank you for those questions.
Well, thank you again for coming tonight. I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's good to be with all of you.
Councilmember Jaffer.
Yeah, I just, again, Assemblywoman, I just wanted to say thank you so much. I actually had the opportunity to listen to all the details earlier today when you were presenting in the community center. And I truly appreciate you coming to San Ramon. It was heartwarming to see that community center and all the local electeds. And, they were talking about how beautiful San Ramon is. So I was selfish in also being there and making sure so appreciated and appreciate you having an office locally. I learned so much about what I could call you about. And that's, there's a lot of services that you do offer. And I really love what you talked about your internship program and offering those internships. I know in San Ramon, our schools are kind of why people move here. And those internships are something that our students are always looking for. So thank you so much for giving them the opportunity to do these internships through your office. But thank you so much. I know you've been here in San Ramon since like 5 o'clock between our community center here. So just want to say thank you and appreciate you coming down here today.
Thank you, council member. And we love our interns. So if any high school or college kids are listening, please do come to our office. We love being able to share what we do with you, have your help, and also have the energy that our young people bring to our office. Thank you.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Yeah, thank you for the update this evening. You mentioned your role on the Water Parks Board and you answered some questions on a reservoir above ground, below ground, whatever. What's the thought process going on right now in Sacramento on desal? And where are we going with that, or are we going anywhere with that?
So I was carrying the only desalination bill in the legislature, and it was held in the Appropriations Committee, which made me sad because it actually was held in the Appropriations Committee the day the governor was at the Antioch desalination plant talking about the importance of desalination. So there you go. But it is, I and many others take an all of the above approach, right? California's water future has to include everything because that's really where we are going and where we have to be. I will say that right now, water recycling is much more efficient. The acre foot cost of recycled water is much lower, the acre foot cost of desalination, but the cost of desalination is going down. The technology is getting better. It's driving energy costs down, which means that it's getting more feasible to do it. So we continue to look at it. The bill I had was a study. The last study we did as a state on what desalination should look like in California was 10 years ago. A lot has changed in 10 years. And so has desalination. Many people think of ocean desalination, but as you may know, in Antioch, what they're doing is brackish water out of the Delta, right? We're seeing more saltwater intrusion into the Delta. So we're desalinating more of that water. We're also seeing desalination of our groundwater. We're seeing more saltwater intrusion into our groundwater. So desalination can take many different forms, and it's really got to be a part of our future. And so hopefully we'll have the opportunity to see how we can invest in it and make it easier. I mean, part of what makes it so hard is it gets trapped in all of these fights, CEQA fights and the like. And so the more, just like with our clean energy, that we can plan for it, mitigate it, and do it, the better off we'll be, which was the goal of the legislation that didn't make it through the legislature. But I'll be back with more. But as I said, water recycling is something we're investing a lot of money in because it really is critical and it is cheaper.
Yeah, and water recycling is so important, but we have a shortage of recycled water also. I mean, the more we kind of restrict use and cut back and everything else, that means more water available to be recycled and used in an effective way for our landscaping, our parks, or whatever.
Well, Met is in the process of doing a huge recycle water project, which is great because they have such a big area. So they have more water and it's going to be drinking water. So that's the future of recycled water is actually not just landscaping, but drinking water, which is exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had one comment about desalination. Is Lawrence Livermore Laboratory in your district?
Yeah.
They have a project on desalination.
Yep.
that is much more efficient than reverse osmosis.
Mhm.
If you haven't had the briefing on that, I would recommend you do.
Yes, and that's the energy that's actually one of the technologies I refer to that's driving the cost down by driving
Yes.
energy usage down. And we can now make it energy independent, right? If you do a desal plant with solar
Yes.
and storage, then the energy cost also, if you do it in the right place, is
Yes.
basically paid for by itself. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of exciting, but yes, kudos to the scientists at Lawrence Livermore, who their mission is our national security, but they take that mission very broadly, and our water future is part of it.
And that's where I work.
Oh, there
Yes.
you go.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. We really appreciate, and also 15 laws in 1 year. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So more than anything, all those you were working on with inclusive efforts, that makes it more special for us. Thanks for all. Once again, one thing I would like to see at least help from your side is our youth sports. So that's one challenge we are continuously facing. So if we can get some support on that one from any of your bills, helping our youth to get their sports facility within Tri-Valley area or San Ramon specifically. So that will be a great help for us.
I love that. We've been able to build parks in the past, so let's do more of it together. And thank you all for having me, for all of your work, for our shared constituents, and for everything you do. I know it's not easy, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, we did receive public comment on this item. However, the request is designated under item 4, public comment.
They've already spoken on public comment.
Yeah. So
No, this is an agenda item. I'm free. I have the right to speak to my elected official who is visiting my city.
Oh, there she
I
is.
want to address Assemblywoman
To
Khan.
the chair, the time to speak under item 6 is during public
I
comment.
disclosed that in the beginning
That was announced by the
No.
vice mayor.
because you had technology issue. I didn't hear that.
He repeated it.
yeah, I
He did
repeat.
repeat it.
You had technology issues, and by the Brown Act, I have the right to speak under agenda item, and I have the right to address my elected official who is visiting my city. I have the right to speak to her comments. Do you
So
have
you
any
say, Martin?
objection? May I address you? You
So-
came to spoke to them or including taxpayers as well?
Please direct the speaker to address the council.
You are depriving my right to speak. I have the right to speak.
Sorry, we already gave you opportunity. to
No, you
speak
did
in
not.
public comment.
This is agenda item. The public comment is for non-agenda item, Vice Mayor. You're
Yeah, that's
confused.
part of the public comment. We
No,
clearly
it's not.
mentioned
This
that
is
it
for
is part
agenda
of the
item.
public
Her
comment.
comment, look at the agenda. Please look at the
Okay,
agenda.
I'll give you 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Actually, okay,
1 minute, please clock start.
clock. I want to be fair. Is she here to listen? Okay.
You need to address to the council, please.
I want to make sure she's able to hear me.
Yeah, she can.
Thank you. Okay, so Assemblywoman, I want to share with you my frustration and distress since you were elected. San Ramon residents have moved out. First of all, it's news to me that City Manager Gorton is approved to retire. It was still in closed door deliberation. I'm not sure why you know. Also, I oppose your spending my tax dollars on killing babies. People have the right to kill, but it's not my tax to pay for the kill. Also, you said, since you have been elected, you serve only a Democrat liberal agenda. You said that we're paying low electricity, rate my nose. I'm actually paying more for water because the state is stealing water to subsidize the elimination of fossil fuel. As a result, I'm paying more for gas cars. And what are you guys thinking? You guys are doing away selling of natural gas cars by a stupid year? Like we are all your puppet that you can just push a button and then we can all do whatever you want. It is absolutely
Okay, your
insane.
time is finished, please.
You are actually depriving my time. I usually have 3 minutes, but we can talk later. My name is Taiwan's a country. Thank you.
Good night, Helen.
Okay, with that,
It's Taiwan's a country. It's what is on the card that I have submitted, and you are Michael.
okay, let's go with item 6.2, proclamation declaring October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, presented to Renu Dave from Rewire community and Shailaja Dikshit from Narika. Good. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of San Ramon declaring October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. Whereas in every one in every 3 women will experience domestic violence during her lifetime. 1 in every 4 women will experience sexual assault in her lifetime. And 1 in 6 men have had abusive or unwanted sexual experiences in their lifetime. And whereas approximately 15.5 million children are exposed to domestic violence every year. And whereas when a family member is abused, it can have long-term damaging effects on the victim that also leave a mark on family, friends, and the community at large. And whereas families are indispensable to a stable society, and they should be a place of support to instill responsibility and values in the next generation. And whereas violence against women and children is a prevalent social ill due, so due to the historical imbalance of power in gender and age. However, sexual and domestic violence are widespread and are devastating to society as a whole. And whereas the problems of sexual and domestic violence are not confined to any group or groups of people, but crosses all economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and social barriers, and are sustained by societal indifferences. And whereas the crimes of domestic and sexual violence violate an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to the systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and or abuse. And whereas victims should have help to find the compassion, comfort, and healing they need. And abusers should be punished to the full extent of the law. And whereas victims of violence should have access to medical and legal services, counseling, emergency and transitional housing, and other supportive services so that they can safely escape the cycle of abuse. And whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide service to victims of domestic and sexual violence and work to increase public understanding of this significant problem. And whereas local programs, state conditions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic and sexual violence and its prevalence, and to eliminating it through prevention and education. And whereas we dedicate ourselves to protecting vulnerable members of our community, and whereas San Ramon has a moral obligation to work, prevent domestic violence, address its brutal and destructive efforts, and make ending domestic violence a local priority. And whereas there are local programs and services available to victims of domestic violence and their children. Now, therefore, be it resolved that City Council of the City of San Ramon does hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, and urge all citizens to actively support work towards the elimination of domestic violence. Renu, you want to speak?
Dear Vice Mayor, Vice Mayor Veros, San Ramon City Council members, and everyone watching and attending this meeting. I am Renu Dave. I am one of the project leads for Rewire community. It is my honor and pleasure to receive the proclamation declaring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month on behalf of Rewire community. Everyone knows someone who has experienced a form of domestic abuse, which highlights how prevalent this issue is. But we as a community or society still fail at times to recognize the red flags or signs of domestic violence. DV can present itself as physical, verbal, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological. It's borderless and can happen to anyone of any race, age, sexual orientation, religion, gender, education, or economic status. It's all about power and control. The last 2 years of the pandemic brought with them challenges and struggles we were not prepared for. And with that came an upsurge in unemployment, work disparity, and isolation, all which impacted the DV incidence rate even more. The UN Women org called DV the shadow pandemic through COVID-19 for the intensity it added to the existing cases in our communities. As we emerge into this post-pandemic world, seeking a sense of normalcy, we know that survivors of violence will not feel this reprieve, will continue to be impacted more adversely by the changing environment. In the time like this, Rewire community looks to continue supporting the ongoing work in the area by creating dialogue and mobilizing community resources. We continue to run the survivor relief programs we started in response to the shelter in place 2 years ago, and as we work with advocates standing on the front lines to understand the needs. As part of our work, we recently delivered our 1,000th survivor relief care kit and have provided monetary support to over 150 women and families through our funds. All programs compassionately supported by many volunteers and donors. Through our work, we remain committed to believing and supporting survivors of gender-based violence and want to create an inclusive space that is constantly expanding to bring together circles of care in our community. And this work would not have been possible without DV organizations like Narika and others. So we thank them and many advocates that have worked at the front lines with us. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak and for this proclamation. We are proud to be part of San Ramon community and the city that recognizes the importance of highlighting this issue and are eager and open to working with community members to create resources, education, action towards the gender justice. As I close, I just want to invite you all to the community vigil we are hosting with PFLAG to commemorate Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It is on October 27th outside the City Hall. We hope you can join and speak and support all the voices. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to accept this proclamation on behalf of Narika's board, staff, survivors we serve, and the communities we serve. I thank the City of San Ramon, the City Council for recognizing this month as National Domestic Violence and Awareness and Prevention Month. I want to echo what my fellow advocate actually just said. Everyone knows someone. If we can just pause for a second and absorb what that means, everyone knows someone. If I were to ask in this room, have you ever met someone who has experienced domestic violence? The answer is yes. And it could be that we have someone here who may have experienced it themselves. So when we talk about intervention services, when we are talking about supportive services, I really want to ask everyone present here, is that enough? Is it enough to always talk about giving a service after the harm has happened? Or are we going to move our vision forward and ask ourselves, how do we prevent this from happening? So you've heard the statistics, you know how prevalent it is. Narika has been serving the community for 30 years. Today, I'm going to ask for 3 things for anybody present here. Do we dare to imagine a world that is violence-free? And what it's going to take from us to do that? Do we have the courage to practice every day what it's going to take for us to remove violence from our lives? It's going to mean dismantling our own power and privilege at times. Do we have the courage to do that? And then I'm going to ask everybody, especially the city of San Ramon that has always been supportive and has been stepping up.
how do we mobilize? Do we have the resilience to mobilize services and resources? Asking individuals to step up for their rights is not right, actually, until systems are supporting it, giving them access, giving them the safety and the rights to ask for their rights. So how are we going to imagine, have the courage, and actually mobilize resources is what I really want to leave us with that question. And the city of San Ramon started the work. You know, I think it was 2 years ago or a year ago, a resource page was created that allows a lot of people to go and easily access information. The question is, how are we going to take it forward from here? How do we bring the resources to this city? How are we going to give survivors a place to go and ask for, you know, restraining orders, support groups, legal counsel, without having to leave the comfort of the city they live in? So Narika is here to serve. We appreciate everything the city does to be supportive and give space and platform for us to be able to do our work. And we hope that the collaboration is going to bring more safety and more people should blossom. In our city, people should blossom. If there is harm, there should be support. And I think we can do it. Thank you for commemorating this month. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Council members, let's start with Council
Sure.
member.
Thank you. Thank you for all that your group does, and thank you for the proclamation there, Vice Mayor. I mean, this awareness and prevention of domestic violence is just so important. And you're right, it's not just the awareness, it's the prevention piece that has so many or so often goes unrecognized. And it's in our communities, it's everywhere. And as much as we may not want to admit it, it's here in San Ramon. And there's people out there suffering in silence. And there's, you know, long lasting damaging effects, and there's just no place for it here. So thank you for your organizations and for the work that you do and the volunteers and bringing this awareness to us here on the city council and to our community. Thank you.
Council member Jaffer.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I know you were about to speak.
Go ahead. Well, thank you very much for the work you do. And hopefully one of these days we won't have to have a proclamation. We won't have to set aside a month of awareness. And we see it, you know, the council gets a weekly police report, and unfortunately there is always a significant piece of it is related to domestic violence, whether it's a child beating on their parent, whether it's a wife beating on her husband or a husband beating on the wife, whether it's a great grandfather there's all kinds, and you expressed it very, very clearly. So like I said, thank you for the work you do, and hopefully there'll be a time when we don't have to have an awareness month.
I just want to say thank you to Rewire and Narika for bringing that attention in our community. You mentioned the resource page. We worked with the prior chief of police to get that up and running. Now we have a new one, and on his shoulders, you know, how do we take that next step and make sure that our communities are supported? It is just one of those things which is silent. It is one of those things which, you know, a lot of times people try to protect their families and they don't talk about it. And being able to speak about it, being able to acknowledge it and recognize it is the first step in saying we're here, we're there for you, to support you. And then the next step is, how do we make sure that when they do ask for that support, that we have the right resources to provide that support. So appreciate all the work you've been done, even educating me over the last few years that I've known you, and making sure that we as a city recognize that and bring attention to it. And we all hope that we won't have to bring this in the, you know, there will be one day when we are not recognizing this, but for now it's here and it's slowly being recognized, but there's a lot of work to do. So appreciate it, and anything we can do here for you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rewire team and leadership, and also Shailaja from Narika. Whenever I get any call about domestic violence, the first name that pops up in my mind is Shailaja's name. So I just call her or text her saying that, hey, this is a call, support, help. So I commend your efforts and all the work that you do for our community. Thank you very much. And one more thing is like your event is on 25th. I thought it is on Tuesday, 25th, right? So is it? Oh, it's 27th, because one of the flyer I received on the 19th. Okay, because the flyer that I received is shows Tuesday, 25th October. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm looking forward for the meeting. That's why I wanted to make sure I know that. Thank you very much for all your great work. We appreciate it. Our community is blessed to have such a great community leaders like you. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Picture with the proclamation. Okay, with that, as we don't have any deferred consent items, so there is no item 7, there are no city council appointments, and there are no unfinished business items. So we are going to go with item number 10, new business. Item 10.1, resolution number 2022-127, authorizing the city manager to execute a reimbursement agreement with San Ramon Historic Foundation for the renovation of the organic garden at Forest Home Farms in the amount of 65,000, appropriating these funds to the Forest Home Farms Structures Project CIP 925418 and authorizing a project budget increase to CIP 925418 in the amount of $65,000 for a total project budget of $318,800 for financial year 2022-23. Staff report by our Parks and Community Services Division Manager, Brad Morris.
Thank you
Please
very
go ahead.
much, Vice Mayor Bros, City Council members. Thank you very much for having me here this evening. I'm happy to be able to present to you this evening a great opportunity to renovate the organic garden at Forest Home Farms. And so as it was stated, the recommended action is first, the staff recommends that the City Council approve this resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the reimbursement agreement with the San Ramon Historic Foundation for the renovation of the organic garden at the Forest Home Farms in the amount of $65,000, appropriating these funds to the Forest Home Farms Structure Project CIP 925418 and authorizing the project budget to increase to CIP 925418 in the amount of $65,000 for a total project budget of $318,800 for the fiscal year of 22-23. And so just to kind of give everybody an idea of the garden that we're looking at, this is the garden at the Forest Home Farms property. It is our organic garden that is used for most of the programming there at the farm. We have docents and volunteers that maintain the garden. And most importantly, it's used for our educational tour programs, as well as those Saturday Fun on the Farm programs. The garden was built a long time ago and it is kind of morphed over the years. However, it has aged. And so it's time for us to look at replacing it. So the old garden, what we're looking at is the demolition, the disposal and the replacement of the existing fencing, the planter beds, the shrubs, and the irrigation system. And basically taking it all down and starting from scratch, which is going to be great. The new garden, we're looking at enlarging the footprint. So we're looking at expanding it 10 yards to the west, as well as improving drainage, new perimeter fencing, the new above ground planter boxes, as well as most importantly is a new drip system, which is much needed, as well as some gopher protection underneath the planter beds, which is going to be a hit for all of our docents that are battling the garden with our friends coming from below. And so in conclusion, the GN Henley Inc. Did a bid to not exceeds amount of $65,000 for this project. And with the help of our public services staff who will be supervising the project, it's given us the opportunity to move forward, and it have approved. The project is scheduled to start in November of this year, with being completed in early 2023. And the beautiful thing about this is this would give us an opportunity for us to have the garden ready to go for those spring educational programs. And the best part about this project is the partnership that we've been able to create with the Historic Foundation, because without them, this would not be possible. They got on board with supporting a lot of our programs down there at the farm. As you know, annually, they give more money to support our programs, as well as those projects that'll come up over the years. And they did not hesitate at all to support this project. And so I do have a couple special guests. We have Carol Lopez Lucy, who's in the audience. Carol, please stand, because she's been a member of the foundation for many, many years. And so without her support, it wouldn't be possible. As well as we have Carol Rowley, the president, who is, I believe, would like to speak on behalf of the foundation from Hawaii. So if we could just have a quick moment to hear a couple words from her. If technology cooperates.
There she goes.
Good evening, council members, vice mayor, our special city manager, Joe Gordon. I am so proud to be the president of the San Ramon Historic Foundation, but we have so many wonderful members on our board. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so we have so many wonderful members on our board, and everybody does this on their own time. And I just want to thank each and every one of them for all the effort that they put into the farm. The San Ramon farm is on the National Registry, and it was dedicated on the National Registry June 28, 2002. And since then, we've had and then it became, our foundation was actually, with the help of Carol Lopez, who is in your audience tonight, they worked on establishing a 501c3. So we have annual events, including the crab feed. And I want to thank Dave Hudson, our mayor, and his wife for always being behind the scenes for the crab feed, and also our city manager, who's been there with his family, and other council members who have helped us. So we have the crab feed, sheep shearing, and the Oktoberfest. And whatever we raise goes directly back into the farm. So I want to thank the city. We have a wonderful, wonderful partnership, and it's just a delight to watch the evolvement of this project. So thank you. I hope you come and visit the farm, and I want to thank the city staff and the city council for their support over the years. And thank you, Brad, for bringing this to the attention of the council tonight.
Thank you very much, Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, with that, I open questions for council members. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I'll just make a comment.
We can do after public comment.
Do public comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll open public comment at this point. Do we have any public comment? Okay, with that, I'll close the public comment. Okay, any further conversation, please?
Okay.
Councilmember Monks.
Thank you, and aloha to Carol out there. And thank you, Carol, and here, and all the board members. I just really appreciate the generosity of the San Ramon Historic Foundation. I volunteer over in that garden, so I'm quite familiar with the work there. I've spent many hours on my hands and knees weeding. I've been working on fixing that drip irrigation system, and it's just nothing but a bunch of Band-Aids all thrown together. And you're right, the rodents get in there. They chew up that whole system too. So it's much needed work that I saw described. I think it's going to be a worthy investment. And just thank you for the foundation for their generous offer. And I look forward to seeing that work get completed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Foundation. Appreciate the generosity.
Just echoing everything else and saying thank you to the foundation and Carol from Hawaii. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thanks for bringing this to us, right? It's been sitting there, and people who are involved in the community know about it and know that it's kind of been running down a little bit, not too much, but how important that garden is, and the programming, especially that you mentioned in the spring. So really appreciate the support from the Historic Foundation. I did enjoy the Oktoberfest, so thanks for that. The first weekend in October, and yeah, thank you. Appreciate, this is always cool stuff when we can do these small things in the community, which really have much bigger impact. Thanks.
So thanks, San Ramon Historic Foundation. I'm privileged to be a liaison from the council as for the San Ramon Historic Foundation, and I get to see their work at regular meetings with their board meetings. It's amazing that so much work get done. So it's always amazing that in San Ramon we have such a great leadership, volunteers, that we are just blessed to have them in our community. So thanks once again. Thanks, Brad, for presentation. So with this, we'll go for
Vice Mayor Burris, before you move on, we do have one hand raised on Zoom.
one hand raised on Zoom. Please, let's bring them on.
Call in user 1.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I thought you weren't gonna call on me because you closed the public comment very quickly. I just want to thank the Historic Foundation for all the things that they have done for the city. I have accompanied our not open space, but parks and community services to witness the work that they have done, which is very tedious and very it is time intensive, because so much of it is about our historical facts, and also the thoughts that go into how to preserve our history in present day. Truly takes a lot of not only thoughtfulness, but deep knowledge about our city. So I just want to thank them for the time that they volunteer to our city, as well as their talents and their efforts. Thank you.
Any other hands raised?
That was the only request to speak.
It's okay.
I apologize. Carol Rowley raised her hand again.
Oh, okay. Let's bring her on.
I just wanted to thank the many volunteers that we do have at the farm, and we always need more. But I just wanted to say that this garden project is just a living example of how we can educate our youth, because every year all the third grade students participate in this, and they cannot believe that you actually grow vegetables in the ground. You don't buy them at the grocery store. So we're trying to educate the youth and have them start gardens in their own yards, but this is part of educating our youth, and we're very proud to help our community, including our youth.
Okay, thank you. With that, we are going to item 10.2. Oh, by the way, The vote is approved 4-0. Yes, no vote 1. Okay, with that, 10.2, resolution number 2022-128, adopting the affordable rental housing fee waiver policy for certain rental projects that are all affordable to household making 80% of area median income or lower. So presentation staff report by Lauren Barr, Planning Services Division Manager. Please go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. I have a brief presentation after which I'll be available for questions. So this is the affordable rental housing fee waiver policy. As you know, the general plan housing element has many policies and programs intended to facilitate affordable housing and help with production of housing for all income groups. What we are looking at today is an additional tool to achieve some of those goals and to help with the production of housing. So the proposed policy before you tonight waives certain impact and service fees for 100% affordable rental projects that consist of low, very low, and extremely low income units. And that's defined as 80% of area median income or less. This will help close the gap in housing production from the inclusionary housing ordinance. As you're aware, we have a requirement for 15%, but that only goes so far. So we are going to need to encourage these 100% affordable projects to help fill in that gap. And so when these opportunities arise, we need tools to help them move forward. As I mentioned, this will be a second funding source and a tool to support production of 100% affordable projects. As you're aware, we currently have a trust fund that we can use to support these types of projects, such as the Aspenwood project. But at this point, those funds are pretty much allocated. So we're looking for other opportunities going forward. This will also serve as a local match for state funding applications, tax credit and otherwise. So it helps us or helps affordable housing builders qualify for funding sources. So these are the proposed impact fee waivers. So we're looking at potentially waiving traffic impact fee, school-age childcare fee, parks and recreation facilities fees. Rather than read them all, I'll just summarize several of the specific plan and open space recovery fees, zoning ordinance recovery fee. I would note that the Tri-Valley transportation fee is currently waived for affordable units. But it's also something we would take credit for as a part of a local match because we collect those fees. So in addition, we're looking at some service fee waivers. We did put a cap on those waivers at 25%. And this is for more of the implementation side of the equation. It's the building permit plan check, inspections, planning review, engineering and engineering inspection. And in the staff report, we gave you a case study example of a fictitious 100-unit project to give you an idea of the scale of magnitude that we're talking about. So we went to both the Housing Advisory Committee as well as the City Council Policy Committee late last month, I should say. We did propose a series of red line changes based on the Policy Committee comments. One of the most important aspects was to deal with managers units. With a little additional research, there's actually state laws that require a certain number of manager units on site. So we included that language in the policy. In addition, we added the extremely low income category, which is currently a subcategory of the low income, or excuse me, the very low income. And so it's something that we need to at least recognize because it's part of the spectrum of affordability levels that are possible in a proposal. And then we also deleted the 50-50 split, which was originally set up for the low and very low to allow for flexibility in creating projects that could best qualify for state funding. So in terms of the fiscal impact, there are impacts associated with waiving fees. One of the things we wanted to mention, though, is that all affordable projects are few and far between. They don't pop up that often. Aspen Wood is one, obviously, that was recently done. We did a concept review for the Morgan's Masonry site. And then there's also been some talk back and forth over the years about the Rome project on the old outpost site and whether that could be 100% affordable or converted to 100% affordable. So these are the types of projects that potentially could qualify. These impact fees that are being waived, they're not general fund revenues. They're dedicated sources for specific projects. So the impact of those might be a delay in some of the funding assumptions that go into specific projects that say are funded through park facilities fees or some of the recovery fees. So we would have to take that into consideration as we move forward. The trust fund could also be used to reimburse those fees over time as that fund gets rebuilt. I also want to mention the service fees are general fund resources. And so that's why part of the reason why it's limited to 25%, because it does affect our operating budgets and we need to be able to provide those services. And then lastly, kind of as a recap, this is just another tool that will help us to promote affordable housing and meet our RHNA requirements. So at this point, staff recommends the City Council approve Resolution 2022-128, adopting the affordable rental housing fee waiver policy for rental projects that are all affordable to households making 80% of area median income or lower. And so I'm available for questions at this point.
I do have questions. What is the school-age childcare fee? Where does that go?
It's a program that goes to some of the after-school programs, trailers on the school sites. And so it's a fund that gets paid. Currently, senior housing, I believe, is waived. I'm not positive whether there's an exception for affordable housing now, but it is one of the impact fees that we collect. And it goes into a fund that gets used for various programs to support, like after-school programs and the like.
And that's still the city's fund, but do we share it with the school district or?
Right, we offer grants for trailers and things like that. I think Kathy could probably explain a little better than I can.
Makes sense, yeah.
We collect it, but we hand it over to her. So.
And because we run the after-school program, right? So I'm thinking it's probably that and.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Listening on like 1 minute. Yeah, those fees are collected and they are specifically dedicated to new construction of childcare facilities. They're very restricted.
Okay.
So for us, that's the teen center. So the Pine Valley Teen Center, which is in some state of disrepair, it's got some major issues. We're working with the school district right now in a partnership to replace it. So we're using our part of the funds and the school district's kicking in the rest of them so that we'll be able to do that. But it's very restricted for construction of childcare facilities.
Okay. But we don't give it to private entities. We kind of do it for public.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank
you. The other question I had, so the school district has no say in this. We have ours. Have other cities, what are they doing? Do we have examples?
Well, again, like the Tri-Valley fee is waived. Some cities will waive certain fees. It's kind of all over the board. It just depends on their programs that they've adopted for implementation of their housing element. We did a certain amount of research, but we didn't do extensive because this is more important for us locally. And these are fees that we have control over. That's really the key. And again, with the impact fees, we can budget in terms of how that's impacted over long term. As an example, the Morgan's Masonry site that we're talking about, that's in year 5 of our projections. And as you're aware, our development timelines are always subject to market changes, so they're hard to predict anyway. So we would just have to do our best to budget around those and take the time to fund the projects that we need to do.
And do any of these apply to ADUs or what is, or no?
This would be strictly 100% rental housing. So ADUs would be a different type of program if we wanted to do something like that. But also typically ADUs already have some incentives under state law in terms of setback waivers, and they don't pay some of the impact fees like traffic and things like that because they're accessory to the primary house.
And then have the developers come to us and said, if you guys waive these fees, we would be more motivated to build affordable housing? Or how did we get to the conclusion that we need to do this?
We've had a couple of discussions with, well, we always get discussions from developers asking to waive fees or defer fees or however that works out. We did do that concept review, as I mentioned, for Morgan's Masonry. And so there was some discussion that came out of that, looking for alternative funding sources since Aspen Wood had been largely, the trust fund had been largely used up for that. And we've talked with a couple of different developers, as I mentioned, Rome's another one we've talked with. And frankly, we just don't have the resources unless, council wants to specifically allocate funds from some other source to support these types of projects. So we see this as sort of a core way of getting some credit and momentum behind this. And it's conceivable that a project might even need additional funding to close gaps to make it pencil. Right now we're in a very tough market for construction costs and everything else. So it can be very competitive.
Yeah. I mean, it'll certainly have impacts on our finances, but
it's a trade-off, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that this is for projects that are 100% affordable. But the only exception to that is the manager. What is the limitation on manager units?
Well, there's a ratio tied to the number of units on site, and it's actually spelled out in the red line revision that we did. Let me look it up for you. So basically, it's one manager unit for developments of 16 units or more. 2 manager units for developments over 161 units, and then each additional 80 units above the 161 requires one more unit.
Okay.
Up to 4 maximum.
Okay. Yeah, that came up in our
Yes.
our discussion, and I just wanted to make sure that things like the Aspenwood project wouldn't have been disqualified with the 100%. So 100% does include manager units. And do those manager units also get the fee waivers on them?
They do.
Okay.
Part of the project as a whole.
And part of the project as a whole. So all units are considered in that. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Thank you, Lauren, and thanks for putting in that clarification on the manager units. I saw that, but one of the things I saw in the staff packet that I don't remember seeing when it came before policy committee was there's a part in here on eligibility and project qualifications of fee waivers. And I'm looking at packet page 28. There's a statement there, all units shall be below 80% area median income. I get that because that means that they're not, they're below the moderate level. They're, low or very low. But then there's a statement there, these specific breakdown of units shall be consistent with state funding guidelines. And I know for the current RENA cycle we're in, there's a certain percentage of, low and very low that we're supposed to be hitting. And then for the upcoming cycle, a certain percentage, they're not exactly the same, but should we not require some minimums also for low and very low? For example, say, 15 to 20% low, 30 to 35% very low, or whatever matches up with our current RENA cycle?
Yeah, the challenge in this and what it was intended to do was to give more flexibility in terms of how someone might structure a proposal. For example, it could be, 60% low, 30% very low, and 10% extremely low. That all affects how they qualify for funding sources in terms of the breakdowns that they can create. Now, currently under our RENA numbers, low and extremely low are the same in the same category, even though they're technically different in income levels. And so in the future, they may be split out. So we wanted to make sure we expanded that definition to include the extremely low. But, you know, if you wanted to put some thresholds in there, it's something we consider. It could be a barrier to funding if it's too regimented one way or the other.
Yeah, and I get that. It's just one more,
Yeah.
requirement, but at the same time, if you don't have some kind of requirement, are they not going to kind of take the path of least resistance and build kind of the most affordable to them, which may not help us to meet some of our hard to reach numbers?
Well, right now, low and very low are the numbers we need to meet, and the challenge. We don't particularly have a problem with moderate.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the low and the very low.
Well, again, it comes down to how they qualify for funding, because as 100% affordable, they are going to be going after additional funding sources. And so the breakdown of units will affect how they score in their ability to obtain funding. So there's going to be a spread there. It's just a question of the mix. It's a cost benefit kind of formula. I believe we have one of the representative from one of the local builders that can probably speak better to it than I can. Under public comment.
Sure, I'd love to hear a thought if we have time.
Sure. Okay, any other questions?
They're here now?
Yeah.
Or-
They have a speaker card on the side.
Okay, okay, all right.
Okay. Any other?
Perhaps they can address it at the appropriate time then.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Yeah, quick. So these are going to apply to any projects that are coming after this is adopted, or?
Correct. It's not for any ones that have already been approved.
Yeah, that we've
It's
already given a lot of money to.
new projects. So
All right. That's
So-
it.
Lauren, one question is regarding trust fund. What is the balance? Any idea what we have in that?
I don't have a specific number, but I know it's obligated for many years to come. So I'd have to get back to you on an exact number.
got it all. So we became zero. Okay, that I'll open public comment. Public comment is open now.
We have two speaker cards for this item. The first is from Leanne Thomas.
Hi, thanks. I'm Leanne Thomas with Anton Development. We recently submitted the concept review for the Morgan's Masonry site. We proposed 162 workforce housing units, and it'll be ranging from 30% AMI to 80% AMI. Some of the key things that I'd like to talk about and that we've heard is that this is going to be for workforce families, and the range has to be financially viable. That means that when we go to the state level, we have to be competitive. The state, to get maximum points, requires you to have a certain percentage at extremely low, a certain percentage at very low, and a certain percentage at low. But even with all the financing mechanisms out there, we still have about a $10 million gap we need to fill. In the proposed policy from Lauren, this would help about $2.5 million worth. So I still got to go find the other $7.5 million. So those programs, they change every year. They have different requirements. They say, hey, we want you to focus on transit oriented. Hey, we'd like you to put in a bus shelter. Hey, we'd like you to be, more affordable to workforce housing at 80% AMI. We want to see a range of incomes. So there's no steadfast way to go as of today. It's always changing. Interest rates are changing every single day. My financial models are changing all the time. Construction costs are up 30% since our conceptual review. So when it comes to competitive financing, the tiebreaker is cost per unit. So when we look at sites from our perspective as an affordable housing developer, we say, okay, let's plug it in the model. Then let's see how we score. Because if you're going to be 5 stories with mixed use retail on the bottom and your costs are enormous, you're just going to sit in the funding cycle round after round after round, and you're never going to get funded. So you have to bring it down to cost per unit. And having a program like this that says, automatically, I'm 100% affordable, you get these fee waivers, all of a sudden you become more competitive. In this particular example, our impact fees to the city is over $11 million. So having this fee waiver program of taking $2.5 million off the table for us is super helpful, makes us competitive. And in order for you guys to get that same project as a market rate inclusionary, you'd have to build 1,000 market rate units. So, providing us this tool that is a known quantity when we go in looking at sites is valuable, very valuable. And then that just leaves a little less risk when we have to go to the market and source other funds.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The next
Any-
speaker is Taiwan Country.
I have 3 minutes, Vice Mayor. So it's very strange that Anton Development wasn't disclosed in the staff report. I'm not sure why that is. Is there something to hide? This issue, this item has already gone through 2 committees. The first time it appeared in the Housing Advisory Committee, the staff tried to sort of go around the circle by hiding the amount that will impact the city until a caller called out the staff report. And then in the policy meeting, Councilmember Armstrong had actually suggested, instead of going 100%, why don't we consider a fraction such as 25% of the total 2.5 million? Why? Because this is really not money going to the tenants like what the subject title says or misleads people to believe. This 2.5 million goes to Anton Development, and I assure you, they're not poor. They should be able to come up with the remainder of those money, and yet they are wanting you to waive 2.5 million that will go to children, that will go to quality of life of the tenants. Furthermore, Anton Development happens to have a project next to where I live. Their tenants are always smoking on the sidewalk. Their kids are always playing in my community, which is an HOA. I pay $325 a month for. Their cars are parked in my community, and they don't ever address that. This is not a San Ramon friendly company because they don't want to pay and they want us to pay. So I would like you, if you want to be re-elected, please consider this. You are taking away from the most needy people because they need a place to live. Who wants to live in a high density that doesn't have any amenities? And yet you are forcing them to do without by forcing me to pay for them. And also, you don't have $2.5 million to afford because you need to pay these nice people, the police, the clerks. How are you going to pay for their salary if you waive 2.5 million? Like you're going to rob the bank? Please do not allow rich companies, they have the ability to get that money. 2.5 million to them is like $2,500 to me, which you freely took. Thank you.
That was the last request to speak.
Okay, with that, I close the public comment. Any further conversations, questions? I have one question regarding, based on the model, is it possible to tell what would be a rental price for a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom? Is it possible?
Well, currently the rental rates are tied to the area median income and household size or bedroom size. And so under our current schedules, there's an assumption that's made, I believe it's 30% of the income for housing costs. So if you were to look at a 2-person household for, let's call, say, very low income, the maximum amount of income they could have is about $57,000, and the maximum rent for that would be $1,428, according
Okay.
to the current table for 2022.
Sounds good. Any questions, any feedback? Okay, Let's go for voting. Who is moving?
I mean, I'll just,
Oh,
just,
done already.
just a comment. I mean,
Yeah.
I do think this is another tool in the toolbox. This is kind of few and far between, pretty rare that we would get an all affordable proposal. So, and that will really help us to meet some of those critical numbers that we have. So this is a tough nut to crack. I mean, got to balance the need for revenue. We got to balance the, collection of the fees, and do we waiver, do we not waiver, that sort of thing. But I think this is such a rare thing when it happens, and I think it's the right thing to do.
And I think San Ramon is doing a lot in helping, so we should get acknowledged for that as well, and probably get, hopefully we'll get some of these units built in San Ramon, and have you in the community to build great communities here in San Ramon as well.
So I would definitely like to say thanks to our staff, Lauren and your team, for working on this one. I see that there is going to be physical impact, but when we look at the overall bigger picture holistically, it is going to benefit San Ramon in a big way. First of all, we are going to meet our RENA numbers, and second thing is this affordable housing, I'm looking forward to see more workforce. We can live within San Ramon, and also I'm looking forward for more youth to be coming back to city of San Ramon, so they can reside in this affordable. So if I see this holistically, it is a very good thing that is happening. So thank you very much for all your work on this.
I'd like one other comment, and that is, if Anton is actually successful in coming up with 160 units affordable, you're absolutely right. That's equivalent to 1,000 unit development, or actually 1,100 unit development.
Yeah.
With 15% affordable. So that goes a long ways towards helping us make our RENA goals, and I hope you're successful. Hate to see Morgan's Masonry go, but that's life.
Cool. There's still an entitlement side that has to happen too.
Oh, yes, there's a long road.
Okay, I see moved by Councilmember Perkins and second by Councilmember Jaffer. I see vote 4 yes, and there is no vote of 1. Thank you. Okay, with that, we are going to item 10.3. Public hearing, introduction of ordinance, next in line, repealing and replacing
Don't read it all.
Chapter 1. Staff report by our Chief Building Official, Vance Phillips.
You didn't want to read all that?
Start out doing it.
Do I need to read all that?
I think when you're voting.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
You don't have to read all that, but when we do the motion, we'll read it as and waive the reading of the ordinance.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Vance Phillips, Chief Building Official, manage the Building and Services Division. I'm here to introduce this ordinance and discuss the backgrounds of it. It's July 1 of 2022, the California Building Standards Commission published the 22 edition of the Title 24 Building Standards Codes. The Building Standards Commission held public hearings on modifications to the codes, and the modifications come from state agencies and include state amendments that are covered in law, and they're placed in the building codes. These codes regulate building construction for the state of California, and all jurisdictions are responsible for enforcement of the building regulations. And we either adopt them, they become mandatory for us after January 1st. We can also make local amendments, and that's what we're doing here today. Staff presented this to the policy committee, and policy committee recommended to bring this to the city council.
I'd like to also bring to attention that staff modified the ordinance that was presented to this September Policy Committee, and to clarify the effective date is January 1, 2023. So even though we're doing it early, it won't take effect until January 1. Some of the items that were also asked, they asked us to bring about 5 items that there were changes or notable changes. The Energy Commission had a lot of changes this year to the code adoption. The Energy Commission does get into new buildings. They're the easiest targets of construction, but they also recognize that there's 6.8 million existing dwellings in California. And they also add to the energy use in California. So while they're making improvements on new construction, they also make improvements on the existing construction. So now you may hear these because your constituents will say, you know what the building department's doing, but they come from regulations. When someone re-roofs their house, there's insulation requirements they also will have to add to when they're doing their re-roof. When they replace their furnaces and air conditioning, they have to do duct testing and verify that they aren't leaking. There's a lot of energy loss, heating and cooling loss through leaking ducts. There's energy efficiency requirements for air conditioning equipment, window replacement, furnaces, water heaters, and roofing materials. So those are all improvements or changes that we will see. New dwellings, new residential dwellings, if they're installed with gas appliances, they will also have to be installed with same ability to install electric appliances for future change out. If they install a gas water heater, they'll have to install the area for a heat pump water heater, which is larger. And then the wiring for it as well, and the breaker. So the installation will be there for future changes. The same thing with a gas cooktop stove, a gas furnace, a gas dryer. So those will all be wired electrically with breakers and the electrical service sized appropriately. Non-residential buildings. I put this one in. There are quite a few changes required for non-residential or commercial buildings in office tenant improvements. The lights shutting off, the ventilation shutting off, but if the space is not occupied. But one of the bigger items, I think, and more noticeable, if a office building or a retail building is required to install photovoltaic, they also have to install a battery storage facility. And while this may not sound like a big deal, a battery storage facility in commercial buildings are a little larger. And the photos that were shown to us during our training, they're actually stored in shipping containers. They actually build these in shipping containers and they place them on site. So we'll have to adjust for that. Our planning staff will have to, figure out where we're putting these in, where these will be placed, and then enclosures or what type of public view that we'll have. So it's something else to take into consideration. Residential code, and this has been coming for quite a few years, and it's finally, I'll call it, landed in the code, is the aging in place and fall prevention, which is important. We're trying to keep people in their homes, or residents in their homes, as they age. And so the new construction, as they're building it, they do this for multifamily, are already apartments and condominiums. They place backing for toilet grab bars, or grab bars to be placed behind toilets for future use, and showers, switch heights, outlet heights, thermostat doorbells. Those are placed at a height that are manageable and reachable by the elderly. They don't have to bend down as far to plug in an outlet. They can have the ability to have a grab bar installed for a toilet to help assist them when they're using their shower and their toilet. That helps that. So, and then also documentation. Not only do they build the house with that, they document it and provide it in a manual for the owner, so they are aware that it's there. So that's a few. There are a lot, and staff are still going through training to get all that. And I'll note that we're placing information on the website, and as we update it, we'll include it in the council weekly so you're aware of it. So we're probably just going to put a bigger block of information. It's kind of piecemealed right now, but we'll get it in there for your view and for the public's view. So down to the changes of specific amendments, the city, our proximity to the earthquake faults or the fault zones is the reason for some of our changes for the structural upgrades. The amendments to the residential California Building Code and the California Residential Code are similar. While we hardly ever see, or we never see unreinforced concrete, it was in the code that it's allowed. And so we have the provisions to require a reinforcing steel or rebar in concrete footings. So that's one of our amendments. It is in both residential and the building code and the residential code. And also the limiting of sheetrock or gypsum board as a shear resistant. It works a singular time most of the time for sheetrock and an earthquake, but it usually is damaged and it won't work multiple times. It's not cyclical. So we limit the use of sheetrock and stucco or plaster to resist shear. It's usually plywood is what we will have, and then different types of metal bracing panels that is used. So that's a couple of our amendments to the building code and residential code. Also, the mechanical code is being amended. There's a requirement for checklists for residential plan check, and we take it out. Our staff does a good job of doing our residential plan check, so we don't need a checklist. So it's just something we're taking out of the mechanical code. The plumbing code is also referencing the building code table 2902 for plumbing fixtures. The plumbing code does not include all types of occupancies for the number of plumbing fixtures needed for toilets and sinks and urinals for all types of occupancy. So we use the building code table as well. So it's shared for that for those numbers. Electrical code, just deleting requirements for the permit fees, permit application, inspections. Those are covered in the building code for all the codes. So we don't want to have the double requirements. So just uniformity by using one code. The existing building code is, the residential code. There's a table in the residential code that's blank and we fill in the blanks. And so just, and you'll see that in the ordinance, we've completed our San Ramon's portion for the residential code. It is a nationwide code, actually a worldwide code, an international code. And there are provisions for snow. Well, we don't have that. We don't have many provisions for hurricane, but we do for wind and seismic. So those provisions that we need are what we address in that table. And that's in the ordinance. And then the existing building code, again, deleting just the requirements for permitting and permit applications. That's covered in the building code. So we don't need the double reference, like similar to the electrical code. It is covered. We're not taking away. It's just don't need a double reference. The adoption of these codes will not apply to any permits issued or applied to prior to January 1st, 2023. So any permit we have currently active that we're inspecting will stay under the code it's on. And also anything we received up to and including December 31st, 2022 will be processed under our current 2019 code. If someone is applying for a permit and wants to use the future code, there are some benefits or some additional measures that for electronics. We see it a lot with photovoltaics. That industry is changing a lot with solar, and the new codes have already addressed it, but we aren't there yet. They'll often ask to use that newer code for some of their applications, their installations of solar. So we're not preventing builders or installers to using the future code, but just so they have an idea of where that cutoff line is. The council can either make changes to the ordinance and it'll be reintroduced October 25th, or if no changes are made, we'll introduce the ordinance for consideration for adoption on the October 25th city council meeting. And if it's adopted, it'll take effect on January 1, 2023. And that's My,
I'll move, opening the public hearing, introduce the ordinance, waive the reading and read by title only. Ordinance next in line. Repealing and replacing chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 8, chapter 9, and adding chapter 10 of division C1 of title C of the San Ramon Municipal Code.
We have mover and seconder. Yes.
This is the motion to open the public hearing. We have not taken public comment yet.
Sounds good. Okay, we got yes, 4 votes and no vote 1. Okay, with this
Council discussion?
first, yeah, any questions, council?
We got a council. vote. Okay.
Discussion, questions?
And
Yeah,
I think it's fairly complicated. So unless I start building a house and then look at, as these codes come in, I'm like, what am I missing here? So and it is complicated, right? It's not simple. That's why you have that very complicated job. How do we make sure that people at least are kind of aware, like what are the big things that they can look forward to changing when they're maybe remodeling or building or pulling permits for some things? How will we make it easy for people to kind of understand?
Well, all right, so as these first go into effect, they are difficult even for staff there's a lot of training going on this last 6 months, well, since July and even through the end of the year. That's why we're producing the information, the handouts. We will making it, the solar industry is really good. I had a meeting with them today. We have a meeting every month now, but it's every 2 weeks at the beginning of the year. Really good about knowing the regulations as they're coming into the code, already producing their own handouts for their own industry. And they're really ahead of the game. Builders, though, it's in addition builders and things like that. It's just the contractor that's out there doing that work, and it's hard. They don't have a group that I'm aware of that they get together and try to hash out all these things or figure all these things out. So that's why we're trying to, or we are creating those handouts and those bullet point information on the website to make it available for the builders. But as far as getting out ahead of it, if there's an industry group, we would definitely go attend with them. Architects attend the same training that we're in. I see a lot of architects unlisted because most of them are online. It's easy for our staff to do them online. And so you can see sometimes you can see who's in the training. And there are architects in that. So, but I don't see a lot of builders, and that's, they're out building is what they're doing right now. They do work with the architects to get their plans through our process and get their permit approved, and then they're building off of them. But which we will do our best to inform them ahead of time. The roofing industry, again, the same thing. They're out working. They're not in these meetings at night. And so that's going to be, feel that's going to be a shock. We're going to let people know as fast as we can, as soon as we can, about insulation requirements in a roof, efficiency, what they call cool roof materials, that change in those requirements to make them more efficiency, longevity, as well as their inability or ability to resist heat coming through the roof and to minimize heat loss one way or the other. So the reverse effect you have from the outside ambient or the temperatures to the
So I guess
inside.
if it's open for public hearing, what can somebody do if raise objections? How? Read through it, and if they understand it, they can, somebody asks, oh, this is open for public hearing for the next 2 weeks.
Right.
What does that really mean?
Yeah, you can. But some of that is they're mandated. I mean, these are mandated requirements, so we can't make them less restrictive. We can make them more restrictive. We really tried not to do that, except for the few that we did reference for reinforcing steel for concrete, and most of it, we just use the code as it's written and not try to create any extra requirements for them.
Well, that particular point is helpful because these codes applied whether there's a contractor working in Dublin or in Danville. And to have unique codes for San Ramon would really upset a whole bunch of contractors that say, but in Danville, they don't require that, or in Dublin, they don't require that. So to keep it as uniform as possible is really to our advantage to both the contractors and our residents. So with the few exceptions you make regarding reinforced concrete, and we should hopefully adhere to the industry standards and the mandatory standards. It doesn't make sense to be more difficult and more restrictive in almost every case.
So is that what it's going to do? Align it to the larger international standards, and we weren't there before, or?
No, we are, and these standards are uniform. So Dublin, Pleasanton, Livermore, the Bay Area, and actually California, where there's the Los Angeles area really brought this together after the Northridge earthquake in 1994. They found the requirements for sheetrock, and wasn't substantial. It worked one time, but you don't, they're usually aftershocks, and then you have weaker buildings after that. So that's where they did find some of those deficiencies in that application to resist, for using sheetrock to resist seismic movement. And same thing they had cracked foundations, broken foundations, and anchoring into unreinforced foundations just was not sufficient. So that's where they came. Now, again, in all my years of working, reinforcing steel has always been placed in foundations, and I haven't seen it not used or even not applied. So, but it's in the code, and somebody finds it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you mentioned about aging in place, I've seen some presentations on, how the new architectural designs are even aligning with that. So putting something in place, where you plan for how people can age in place and have some of those codes in there. I find the whole conversation very fascinating. I'm not a builder, but I think this is really cool.
And remember, it applies to new construction, and I could go on, and I'll try to make this.
I'm enjoying
but
it.
It's new construction, and so it doesn't really get into our older housing stock. And so being able to add that, I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like it's that hard to add blocking for a grab bar. It doesn't need a permit. Somebody could go in and do that for a resident. And so they have grab bars at their toilets or their showers or their tubs. So that's fairly easy. And this started, I'm going to say, more than 12 years ago. It was single story housing that they were really trying to get, and they couldn't make themselves pass laws to limit some houses or percentage houses to single story. It was just when you see most of our developments, there are not many single story homes in them. So, but adding some of these provisions does help as you age in place. Even if you can imagine yourselves aging in your own home, how can I do that and make that better? And so that's some of those provisions. Again, it's new construction right now. It's not applying to those 6.8 million existing units that we have out there, but it's a start. So
when I remodeled our house 2 years ago or 4 years ago, I had them put in the extra support in the bathroom for the handheld bars and things like that. And I made sure the door width was wider and the access to the shower is easier, so that somebody with a walker or a wheelchair could get in there. I'm not using one today, but you never know.
One of the things that's new to the code, we see it every once in a while, but showers usually have a shower dam to hold the water in. The code provisions now allow for a shower floor to not have a shower, to not have a dam. You could have a shower without a dam, but the provisions in the code are you have to wet proof the whole floor. It's not the whole floor becomes the shower. And so you don't want the water damage into your wood construction from there. So that provision was made, and that's how we required it, just by alternate materials and methods that's required, but it's in the code now that allows people. And that helps. Again, you're not tripping over the dam, or if you need to use a walker or something to get into your shower, those
that rubber membrane extended out quite a ways.
Right.
Yes.
And knobs, I heard, like for disabilities, like we used to have the round knobs, but if you've got an issue or you hurt your arm or something,
Right.
they're
The
trying
lever
to
hand
change,
would-
the lever
yes,
one.
Right.
Mhm.
And we've been doing that in commercial. And that's one of those items on the list of items that the state had produced that would make easier access. Again, those are the simple things, the low hanging fruit that allow more access or continued access.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Got some comments. I got some comments at the end, but I think we're in public hearing, so
Yeah.
I'll save it till later.
So is this, there are so many changes and codes and all that, right? So are all these changes or the codes will be verified manually, or is there any compliance software that will take care of it?
So we, as part of our inspection process, we verify, I would say most of these, we do have agencies that like special inspection agencies that they're on site longer than we are to test the strength of concrete, or if someone's welding, they will observe the weld and make sure that the weld is the size and the type of weld that's required. Bolting requirements on steel, so they will actually watch the placement and tightening of bolts to make sure they're torqued as specified by the engineer. So there are certain items that we do depend on special inspectors, agencies, special inspection agencies. We have a list of those on our website. So we also approve the agencies, but so we know what type of qualifications they have as they're doing the work. So we depend on others to help us with all these, as we don't stay out and watch someone nail off the roof or do certain methods of construction. And we do depends on other agencies for that. I'm sorry, other professions for that.
Oh, no, that's good. Any other questions? Okay, so we now open the public comments, right? Okay, opening public comment.
We have one speaker card from Taiwan's the country.
So hearing this board that you just passed 10.2, really not caring at all about.
Oh,
the
you need to
quality-
stick
Topic
to.
of 10.3.
I have the way to get to 10.3,
And
so
address
please don't tell me
10.3.
how to speak. I have no faith in you, so I'm just gonna disclose it to the public who will be renting in the future. 10.3 is not about old homes. It is about building new homes, such as the one you just approved in 10.2. In other words, Anton Development just asked you to waive 2.5 million, but they have 11.5 that they
Could you
need to.
please,
They
could you
still
please
have.
stick to 10.3,
Please don't tell me, but I reserve my minutes, my seconds wasted back. There are 9 million that they need to make up for. How do they make up for it? By having you relax building codes like this. If you can, I can already tell that some council members didn't even read the packet. If you had read the packet, you would not have asked the questions you just asked. Look at that very carefully. Mechanical code, electrical code. This is about the quality of the building that you will be putting in for poor people. So really, you don't really give a crap about them. If you, by allowing these kind of building codes, why do I say that? The staff is quoting an authority. These are building standards. The authority he quoted is from Southern California. Not only are we in Northern California, usually these authorities need to be state certified, state authorized. You're using a provincial standard. It's just for poor people, who cares? Electrical code is especially concerning to me because it will involve a lot of electrical charges that will have fire episodes. And these, God forbid, I don't know how close Anton is going to be building next to existing residential areas. There could be fires like you have never seen before in San Ramon because you're allowing the relaxation of these building code language, which you didn't even bother to read. Furthermore, the steel, the staff quoted, are made, they're green for a reason. What does that mean? The steel is fortified by energy like wind, water, solar panels. That's why they're determined as green. So therefore, there are no, standards that at this time I can see govern them. So how do you know those steels are gonna withstand our earthquake prone district? You don't know that. So all in all, I'm not appealing to you. You guys are done for because 3 of you, I cannot vote. You don't care what I say. All 4 of you just voted that you don't care about poor
Could you
people.
please wrap
So
up your
for
thought,
those people
please?
who will be renting, if you rent these places, you're on your own because there are fire hazards and earthquake hazards that
You're
we are
abusing your
allowing
privilege to
because of
public
the building
speaking.
language is being relaxed. Thank you.
Any Zoom calls?
No, we have no hands.
No
raised
Zoom.
on Zoom.
Friends, okay. So we can go for.
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay, we got yes 4 and no vote 1, so resolution is adopted.
Just for the record, we're improving these codes, building codes, and making them better for people and not making it easier.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, there
there's
is.
very few cases where we will actually make it a code, relax a code.
Yeah,
Do you know of any places where a code is being relaxed? You know, the standard is being relaxed? My impression is that in almost every case, it's being more restrictive and more prescriptive.
That's correct. So nothing less than the minimum standards. So this sets those minimum standards for the codes.
Especially for the electric. And I mean, we've seen, right, over the years, the kind of electric codes we used to have and how restricted they are now.
Yeah, and I'm not, I know, I mean, I mean, we're using the same codes. Is there just the next cycle and as equipment becomes in testing and installations become more knowledgeable or improved, that's when you see the provisions of the codes change, and usually not less. The Oakland Hill fires, you see have fire retardant roofs after 21? I'm sorry, 1991. I think that was the Oakland Hill fire. So, and you see those provisions, you see the codes change, usually increasing the requirements of the standards and making them stronger. We do know that steel connections and steel buildings after the Northridge earthquake, they had cracks at different joints that they found afterwards, and the codes were strengthened because the Berkeley, I hate to even reference it, but the balconies collapses in Berkeley, their state laws that changed those requirements and improved them. And then it's in the code for improvements of how attaching in strengthening the deck attachments to.
In the 89 earthquakes, they found that soft story, your garage underneath a building was just a classic case of a
Falling over.
collapses
Yes,
onto the
it collapses.
garage.
No, we don't have that problem in San Ramon because we don't have any soft story buildings, but there are other communities that do, and they're going about, they're strengthening those. The Fremont, Concord, Berkeley have developed ordinances to repair those, and it's hard because they're usually parking structures, and you don't want people parking in the street, so you still want them to park on their site. So putting great big braced walls and minimize the opening of a garage, so that is something they don't want to do or didn't want to do. So the industry came up with the standards and the ability to strengthen those and strengthen those soft stories, and again, minimize those. So the industry does come up. Most of these items or changes do come from industry. They're not people like me sitting in my office saying, oh, I want to change this now and let's go put it in the code. Usually it comes from industry, the plywood industry doing their testing on plywood and strengthening, and we're going to see thicker walls and wood structures. Forget the term, but taller structures and fire retardant. They offer the same or an improved fire retardant. Sometimes requiring sheetrock, obviously requiring sprinklers. Smoke detectors, you might hear about that from some of our residents. We're having them change. There's a requirement for batteries to be a 10-year battery in smoke detectors. And smoke detectors have an expiration date on them. We check them. If they've expired, we have them updated to a smoke detector that has the 10-year battery life. So
And it
that's
has
some
to
of
be
those
carbon
provisions.
monoxide now, right? So you
monoxide,
just,
yes.
you have to have that combo and then.
Right. And again, that's the gas appliances. With all electric homes, you
Yeah.
won't have that because there's nothing that creates that. So they might install them anyway, but you're taking away that fuel combustion that creates the carbon monoxide.
So this is all like basically key learnings that they learn and then they fix those issues, right? Like in software industry, we call bug fixing.
Yes.
Maybe
It's
find
like- It's like the GFIC plugs,
Yeah.
right? Like you
And
buy.
arc fault, it was really interesting when the arc fault, I'm so sorry, when the arc fault plugs came out, people would plug their like vacuum cleaner and it'd
Yeah.
trip it. And well, it trips because it has an arc fault. And that did create some dilemmas with some of the appliances when we started, or when you see these new provisions. So expanding the locations from just outside and bathrooms of GFIs, and now all the locations they require them. Again, protection, it's protecting the users from electrocution. So that's what they are. And the fires with the arc fault and the smoke detectors. I probably say it way too many times. I hope the smoke detector never goes off, and I hope it's a waste in your investment, but it's a good investment. So anyway.
Thank you. Thanks, Vance.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, we are going to.
Now we
Sorry.
need a
Yeah.
motion.
We need to motion to close it, right?
And then
You have
I'm just sorry.
comments?
Well, I just,
Oh, sorry. you have-
yeah, I want to make a comment. First, thanks, fans, for keeping track of all this stuff because it's pretty technical stuff. And to me, a lot of the changes make sense. I think a lot of them are maybe questionable value, or maybe just more bureaucracy and potentially even burden on our residential owners and our businesses. But it's all in line with the state or national standards. And I got to keep in mind the big picture, which is increased standards, increased public safety, and that sort of thing. So I think it's better for everybody. I do appreciate you highlighting those notable changes. That was really helpful to kind of hear that. And I'm ready to kind of move this. I don't have any changes. I think we set it for adoption at the October 25th council meeting.
Okay, is adopted with yes 4 votes and no vote 1 approved. Okay, with that, item 11, city managers and city council members' comments.
I have no comments tonight.
But we still have to vote on your retirement, don't we? I'm not sure that will pass.
I'll
but-
submit a report in the next couple months.
Okay.
Staff report.
Okay, let's go with the council member comments. You want to start?
Oh, yeah, get it over with. Get it over with. Yeah, Library Foundation, a week ago. Library Foundation is doing fabulous. They have they had a book sale, they had a jazz concert, they got more jazz concerts coming up. And so they made, I wrote it down in my notebook, but they made a few $1,000s on their book sale. And so they pour that money back into city programs and subscriptions and things like that. So the Library Foundation is really doing great. They're always looking for more volunteers, particularly to help run their bookstore. So they keep their bookstore open more. I have a Innovate 680 meeting tomorrow night. Innovate 680 is a series of 6 different projects, and some of it's transportation to the last mile. Some of it is bus on shoulder systems, and there's a whole list of things. And they're actually getting some money for that. They're getting some money out of TVTC. They're getting some money out of Measure J. They're getting some money out of the state. So Innovate 680 680 cannot be widened. There's some restrictive areas where the land would be extraordinarily expensive to buy more right of way to the right and left. And so we have to live pretty much, and you can't just widen it in a short section. That doesn't help you. You have to widen it through long sections. And so these Innovate 680 projects can have an effect. EBRCSA, the East Bay Regional Communication System Authority Board. I was reappointed to that last Thursday. So thank you, other mayors, for voting for. Well, actually, they approved by consensus because nobody else wanted to run against me. So the Finance Committee of the EBRCSA is meeting on Friday. And I keep pushing on, and we are making progress on my number one goal is to make sure we get a capital replacement plan. EBRCSA has a lot of capital equipment, generators, microwave antennas, towers, dispatch consoles. It's millions and millions of dollars, and none of it has an infinite life. And so in order to keep the rates down for all members, we need to have a capital replacement program that stretches those purchases out so that you don't have all the generators going bad at once. You replace them in a timely manner. The microwave dishes and all the other consoles and servers. So we have programs to deal with some of it, but we're going to need a much more comprehensive program because we got to keep that chief of police and all the other guys, the radios. You know, when I do talk to officers about it, they say that this radio system, if we look back 10 years where we were, this is a much, much better radio system. It allows us to talk to other cities just by the click of a channel on your on the radios. So and I know I've heard from some of the people that they can hear all the way out to Fairfield and beyond. The radios continue to work, you know. So we actually are providing services to Benicia because their radio system really sucks, and so they applied and they're paying us monthly fees to be part of our radio system. We are pressuring them to get off of our radio system because that was never intended to be a permanent solution for them. But EBRCSA is doing a fabulous job, and that's my report.
Okay, you want to go? Go for it.
Yeah, I've seen some other events, but one of them was the American Legion Post 246 recognized the boys state and the girls state delegates for this year. It was a great event. So a luncheon had some of the local schools that nominated these young students for this great week up to learn about government and things like that. So and they came and they spoke to everybody, and a very impressive group, the way they recounted their experience there at the boys state and girls state. Also attended the Open Space Advisory Committee meeting recently. They talked about the next year's hike series, which I think they're really going to call an outreach series. It's more than just hikes. There's some static activities as well, but they proposed some locations and who would lead those different hikes and those activities, and that was good. And then saw a couple of you at the Run for Education. That was great. And the expo, the San Ramon Valley Education Fund did a great job putting that all together. Incredible, the amount of volunteers, the amount of effort that went into that. Great community support and turnout for that whole thing. Young and old, you know, just a beautiful day and a lot of fun. So had a good time there. That's it.
Yeah, lots of community events happening. We, of course, had the Oktoberfest where I saw some of you, and then we had the Festival of Flowers that we attended in Doherty, and then we had Durga Puja that also happened in the last couple of weeks. And Then we did the boys club and girls club, and they were really good. Like the way they've learned what they've learned about running for office, for different layers of government, and how much kind of attention to detail they had. I'm like, you guys are ready to run. I wish somebody told me all of that information, but really good program where they girls go in their obviously a program, and the men go in their program, and they kind of experience different levels. They run for different offices. They embrace certain roles and learn about how government is run at all different levels. So that was awesome. There was also a traffic appreciation luncheon for our traffic drivers. I represent the council on that board, which is our traffic mitigation program. So that was really nice because all the drivers came in, and what is the park off of Montevideo? I'm blanking on the name. Athen Downs Park. Yeah, Athen Downs Park, and they joined us for breakfast, and we're very appreciative that the city was there to appreciate them. What else is Run for Education? You've already mentioned, and then Assembly Member Power Kahan has had her legislative updates earlier before our council meeting, which was very detailed, and glad to see that she's representing a lot of values which are important to us at the legislature. And then we have culture in the community, which is coming up this coming Saturday.
Sunday.
So is it? Yeah,
Sunday.
it's Sunday. Something's happening on Saturday as well. Is it like a cricket thing?
There is Diwali events in
Yes, there's
Tribal.
also Diwali, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, there's more events happening. This, Diwali in the square. So for some, no,
It's
that's
in
that's
Pleasant
next.
and Alameda grounds.
Culture in the community is 10 to 2 on Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
10 to 2 on Sunday at the community center.
And but then you have a couple of other events too, right? There's
Yeah, like
oh yeah, the
Scarecrow,
scarecrow, the
Scavenger hunt.
scavenger. Yeah, there's so much going on. So thanks, Parks, for all the fun stuff that's happening in San Ramon. And then I truly want to say thank you for the beautiful lights on the promenade. I know Joe, the Public Works team has been working on it for a while, and Joe kept giving me updates on they're doing wiring and they're doing all this stuff. But I don't know, when do we turn them off, around 10 or something? I don't know, but go check them out. They just look so beautiful. It's a little thing that builds a community. And I think, those lights, which Parks was doing a great job, I know, kind of hacking and making those lights turn red and orange and whatever color we ask them. But this is truly like fully connected with our city. That's my understanding, right? With our city rotunda lights. And it's, so when they all turn one color, for example, it's pink for breast cancer week. And I believe we're going to turn it a different color for the domestic violence proclamation as well. So I'm super excited. I think it looks beautiful. It creates such a sense of community for us. And I appreciate everything that the staff has done to really, far exceed the expectations of what they've done and how they put those lights. So thank you for that.
So it looks like pretty much all the events are covered. And I know October is one of the busiest month with so many events. It's amazing. So many events like Oktoberfest, and then thanks to Parks for helping with Agumoni. That was a huge hit event. I get to hear in the social media and everyone talking about San Ramon, especially with the hashtags of San Ramon and community. There were so many social media posts that came up. So thanks for all your hard work and helping that successful. Also, definitely looking forward for our culture in community. What is that? On October 23rd, there is a Diwali at City Center, Diwali event. So, and yeah, so it's nice to see council members and parks commissioners to run into each other during these events. Okay, thank you. With that, I'll go and
Vice Mayor Gross, you do have public comment on this item.
Oh, we have public comment. Okay, I'm opening the public comment.
Call in user.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to comment on Council Member Michael Perkins. Scott Perkins' comment that he is elected by other mayors. It makes sense because I don't think any taxpayers in their right mind would elect him to anything. Witnessing how he bullied an Asian woman called Taiwan's a country by calling her Helen today is such a racist experience that was witnessed by all on at a public meeting. Furthermore, he mentioned earlier that Danville standards should be, adopted in San Ramon when Danville doesn't have multi-story affordable housing. It's really farcical. Just like his district will never have those multi-story affordable housing that is fire prone and earthquake, vulnerable, because he has all the retail in the city. So anyone who is able to elect him, please do not elect him next time. Thank you.
Any other? Okay. Public comment close. Now, item number 12, public comment. At this time, if you have not previously spoken under public comment, item 4, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone when it is your turn to talk and call upon a name if provided. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person and a clock will be running on the Zoom screen. The speaker's microphone will be muted once the allotted time has expired. While we encourage your comments, unfortunately, state law prevents the City Council from discussing items that are not on their meeting agenda. They do take them very seriously, however, and if appropriate, staff will follow up on them. Public comment is now open. Any public comments? Nothing.
Speak.
Okay, I've closed the public comment. Item 13, our next regularly scheduled council meeting will be held on October 25th, 2022. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.